Okay, well, good afternoon. I'm Manuel Fernandez. Today, this is our third Blackboard clinic, and we'll be talking about final exams and things you should be preparing for the final section of the semester. So, one of the first things I want to talk about is final exam reviews often come up as a question that we get from faculty. Like, I want to show them our feedback. I want to show them what the answers they got on the previous exams, what to do. But I don't necessarily want them to copy those questions or get those questions if I plan to reuse that for the final exam. So for that, we have Respondus Lockdown Browser. You can easily access Respondus Lockdown Browser from the front here. Before you even log in, you have this URL that you can copy, and we'll use this in a moment. So say, for example, you do have like a couple quizzes or maybe the midterm exam that you're planning to use questions from. You can go ahead and add the Respondus Lockdown Browser as a requirement for students to take to look at the exam feedback, and therefore they cannot take screenshots or communicate with anybody while they're taking the exam. So while they're looking at the feedback also. So I'm going to just go ahead and open up quiz 1, and I'm going to turn on the Respondus Lockdown Browser. So I'm going to give them a password. Say, I only care for the students that actually come to my class for review, or like if you want to do like a face-to-face session, or you want to do like a Skype session, this would be one of the things you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. So now we have quiz 1 has Respondus Lockdown Browser enabled. Now I'm going to go into the test options. I'm going to select a change of feedback. So for this case, we're going to assume only a specific date. You only want to open them for 3 days before the final. So let's, we would say, okay, let's do it December 1st, or actually Monday, so December 4th, and then you can show all these, right? This indicates that all the questions are open, so the students can see what all the answers were, which one was correct, and which ones they clicked on. Then you go ahead and click Submit. So what happens is any student that took quiz 1 will be able to see that feedback on December 4th, and it will require Lockdown Browser before they can take it. They can take a look at it, and that guarantees that there's no screenshotting, there's no printing of the questions, and you can prevent, if you're using questions from previous exams, you can prevent that they're trying to get that for reference, right? So the next thing we're going to cover is text exceptions. So as the final exam approaches, you might have students that are going out of town, might require extra time. So for that, we would modify something called test exceptions. It is located under the test options. So I would click here, test options, and then scroll down to where it says testability exceptions. Click on add user or group, and I'm going to pull 2 students so I can show the difference between the two. So for one student, it might just be a matter of, I'm going out of town, I cannot take the exam on the 5th. I actually needed to take it like 3 days later. So I'm going to move it from the 5th to the 8th, and then make it available until that Sunday.
Manuel,
Right?
real quick,
Yes.
you're going so quickly, and I'm keeping up, but will this be documented for me to go back and look at?
Yes, we're recording for one of those reasons. I can slow down a little bit. So for this one student, we simply just have the availability to take the exam needs to be done other than the official time, right? They have a document the reason for that, so I'll just move the time from whatever was up here to this specific time window. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save, right? Well, sorry, got that wrong. Okay, the 12th, December 10. Now I'm going to go ahead and click Save. That's for one student. Now this student here needs extra time of course, your features might be turned on as soon as, when you have them turned on here, then they start appearing here. So for this one student, I simply click on the timer and I'm going to add time and a half. So if this is 60 minutes, this would be like 150, right? And we still have auto submit. There's nothing else you need to change. The student will still be taking the exam at the regular time because there's no modification here. The only thing will be, once again, is the timer.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. So now you have two exceptions. For that exam, the student has 3 days after the official end date. Another student has time and a half. That completes everything. Now, without the questions for an exam, you can really make some of these changes. So we are also going to cover how to upload questions if needed be. So first, I'm going to go ahead and create a document using Notepad, which is our preferred option. So the standard format for a question, a multiple choice question primarily, would be a multiple choice question, right? That's the text of the question. Then you have A, B, C, D, right?
Mhm.
So the correct answer should be denoted with an asterisk next to the correct answer. Answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, answer 4. Okay, make sure you have a space and then space, right? So imagine doing this
Does
for,
B not need a space?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is just making sure. Yeah, that is correct. So you would do the same for all the others. The other option for listing correct answers is to have an answer key at
Yeah.
the bottom. And then you go 1 is B, 2 is C, etc. Right?
So I didn't know I could do this. What I've been doing is using Respondus and just uploading it.
Well, this is the type of file that you would bring into Respondus. So it has to be formatted a certain way, right?
Right. I actually do use this kind of file, but I didn't know I could do an answer key. That's different.
Right.
I've always been doing the asterisk.
Right. That is if you are more either one works. I personally prefer the answer key, but
Yeah, I think it's nice.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, imagine doing the same thing for all the other questions, and you would have a document you can bring into Respondus.
Okay.
We do have a tool that we're currently using, located on a separate website. So we can. Do you want to go over Respondus campus-wide, or do you want me to show you this alternative?
It's fine.
Okay. So this functions very similar to Respondus campus-wide. The only thing is that their questions are all in the test canvas. They're not pools of questions. You cannot create pools. So if you're okay with not being in pools of questions, this works perfectly fine. So I would just copy and paste that in here. And then let me just do a true and false
Okay.
so we don't have formatting problems. And I'm going to call this final exam. And then create a quiz. You should have the same amount of questions that you have here show up in this little information.
Mhm.
So if I had one question, I formatted something wrong. So I click here, and it downloads a file that's compatible with Blackboard. So I'm going to create this folder so I can find it quicker. Final exam. I'm going to save it. So going to assessment, and there's multiple ways to create an exam, but you can easily start from test, go to create, and go to test servers and pools. So now we bring that quiz into Blackboard. Go to downloads. Hold on. So I bring this in. Okay. I think it might actually be in the pools area. So never mind. It's in the pools area actually. So we would still get that benefit if that's what we want to do. But we'll go to build test. You can add any description or instructions if you need to, and then go to reuse question set. Attach your questions, then click submit. Now, when you're working with pools of questions, you always have to make sure you change from the default option. So if you have 50 questions in total, and you only want to use 25, you have to change it because the default is always going to be 1. So in this case, we're just going to do 2, and then you can always change the point value. You know, if you have 50 and another set of 50, then you might want to do 2 points each. Then you have 100 points, right? Click submit, and that's okay. Let's say we completed this final exam. So then anywhere in your class, you can deploy it as long as you have an assessment area, although we do recommend, if necessary, for the student's sake, to create a content area called final exam in order to make it easier to find. So you click on available to users. It'll be empty if you don't add anything to it. So then you have to go to test, select your final exam, and choose your options. So this always has to be set to yes, and then you can modify your timer. So that always have to be like 2 hours, and then you can choose 1 to make it available. If you're going to be doing the test in class, but you are uploading it to Blackboard, you can add a password. So the students have to come to your class in order to know what the password is. So final exam 2018, right? And then there's your submission. So after the students has finished, or maybe after the ability end date has passed, then you can choose to add all these feedback options, and then click submit.
At the very bottom, can you go back?
Yes, ma'am.
The very, very bottom, randomize.
Randomized questions. Yeah, it's primarily if you have more than 1 attempt, but yes, this should technically randomize your questions no matter, no matter how many questions you have.
So on the final exam, it's not gonna randomize the answers, it's gonna randomize the question order?
It's gonna randomize the question order. For randomizing the answers, we can take a look at test surveys and pools. You go to test. So let's go to this final exam and modified. Just want to acknowledge that Professor Pogue logged on. You're currently on mute, sir. Give me 1 moment. All right. So for randomizing question answers, you can go into the specific question, and there is always an option at the bottom, somewhere in here. Show answers in random order. So this will technically, like, right now this is a true and false, so this could flip the true and false.
But I'd have to do that for every single question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Right.
But still, that's good to know.
Yes. You can definitely do that for the other one, the multiple choice. I don't know why. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So that's one way to upload to Blackboard without having to use Respondus campus-wide. I know sometimes that can be a little bit time intensive.
So yeah, but once it's set up.
Right. So the last thing that we were going to cover is that once you have all your ducks in a row and you have your final exam, all your attempts are graded, not only the final exam, but your homeworks and your discussion boards are set up, you can create weighted total columns. So the one disclaimer is make sure your students are aware there's going to be a weighted value calculation in your syllabus, because doing that, choosing to do that all of a sudden is not a good idea. But we're going to call this weighted total. So let's say we have a couple discussions here. So I could select 1, 2, 3, right? And each one could be worth 10 points, 10%, right? Then we would have your final. And look for the final exam. So you could have a final exam that's worth 20 points, so that's 50. You could do a major project, call something like a report. That could be another 20 points. And then we could have something like a final paper, like a long project. That could be your last 30 points. So that would be what a weighted total column can look like. You can at any time use categories. So say, for example, if I want to include every single discussion, I don't have to bring in the columns on their individually. I can always choose the category of discussion and then give the category of discussions 30 points. And that would be one way. You can also, if you want to do a curve, you can drop the lowest grade, like drop the one lowest grade in the category and then click submit. So then your students can have, so then you can have a more accurate view, a calculated total for the student. All right, any questions?
No, that's really good.
All right, any requests, any class issues that you would like to get some assistance with?
You answered it. I'm not using weighted total this semester.
Mm-hmm.
I have in the past. This semester I just did a true, 1,000 points, and each, exam's worth this much, homework's worth this much. So it was weighted in respect of points given.
Right.
But I have used weighted in the past where the project was more and the homework was less, and this was that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I just went with points this time because I don't remember who told me that it was basically the same thing.
Well,
And I've never used points before. This is my first time.
It can definitely come out to basically the same thing. If you have 1,000 points.
I do.
Yeah. Well, Professor Pogue, any? Hi, sir. Do you have any questions or requests?
Manny, my wish was to, and it may be that this is not an efficient way, and I don't want to waste Ms. Brace's time, but I had an exam. I think it's already set and ready to roll, but it's in another course and wish to copy it into an existing course.
Well, I can certainly do a demonstration. That's a great point. I actually forgot to cover that. I can definitely do a demonstration on how to do that, and you can follow along.
Unusual. Yeah.
If you get stuck, you can just let me know, and we can pause briefly so we don't have to share any of your course material. But you can go into course tools in the course you want to copy from. You can go to course tools, expand the list, and click on test service and pools here.
Okay.
Then go to tests. The first thing I would check is to see if the test is comprised of pools of questions or of just the test is laid out as question 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can go ahead and let me know if that's the case.
But I thought you said this was in a different class that you taught in another semester.
Right.
It's a master course kind of thing. I didn't even make up this exam, but it was given by our coordinator as a final that we're all supposed to use.
You can still go ahead and copy that to another class.
Yes. Okay.
So for that, we're going to the course that you're copying from. So do you have access to that class?
Sure.
Okay, so go inside of from your course list, go into that class.
Yes.
And follow along. I'll go to course tools. So you go to course tools and click on test servers and pools.
Right.
Right.
And I first go to the existing course in which the exam is to be found now.
Correct. That's correct.
And my copy command will go from that to where I want it to go.
Yeah, go to test. Yes, we'll get to that step in a moment.
All right.
So you go to test, but the first thing I want to make sure is that if you click on edit, you can see what type of questions they have. Is it a question set, or are the questions like individually laid out in the test canvas. So this is the test canvas. Does it look like this, or does it look like individual questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
I'm based on what the midterm was. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be numbered questions 1 through 50, each worth 2 points.
Okay. So are you looking at the exam right now?
No.
Okay. Well, then you would click, if you are looking at the exam, you would click on here,
Uh-huh.
the arrow next to more options, and you can click to export to local computer. This will download a copy to your exam, to your computer. Downloads folder is normally the default. And then we would go to any of your classes where you want to deploy this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
imagine going into this new
Right.
class.
Right.
Go to test service and pools again. Go to test, and then click on import test.
Can he share his screen so we can see this happen live?
Yeah, would you like to do that, sir?
I don't care.
Thanks, Bill. I'd like to see it.